G'day, Neil here from Player One Sim Gear. Today we're taking a look at the range of haptic feedback devices from our friends at Buttkicker. We're going to be checking out three models. There's the Gamer2, which many of you may be familiar with, and then the two new models that have been released recently, the Gamer Plus and the Gamer Pro. We're going to be answering three questions. Firstly, do you need a Buttkicker in your life? What do they do and why do you want one on your rig? Secondly, if you already have the Gamer2 and you're familiar with this device, do you need to look at upgrading to either the Buttkicker Gamer Plus or the Gamer Pro? And then thirdly, we're going to be answering what's the difference between the new models, the Plus and the Pro, what stands them apart, and what do they have in common. So why don't we go check out these new devices. Okay, so the first question is far and away the easiest one to answer. Do you need a Buttkicker in your life? The answer is absolutely yes. If you haven't experienced haptic feedback as part of your simulator experience, then you are straight up missing out. The ability to translate what you see on screen to what you feel when sitting in your sim is something that until you've experienced it, you can't really understand just how critical it is to the overall simulator experience.
Launch in progress.
Good shot, dude. Good shot. Roger.
So what do I mean by that? Basically, what this little device does, if you're not familiar with Buttkickers, they translate the physical outputs from your simulator into a form of vibration that travels through your rig and into your body. And that vibration essentially comes from these things here. These are the transducers. And what these do is essentially they shake. So you can see they have an attachment point here where they'll attach onto your rig or onto your seat directly, and they vibrate and they shake. And that feeling translates its way through to you. And that feeling comes from a range of different inputs that the simulator outputs to the amp. And those inputs come everything from acceleration curves through to speed, through to, of course, engine vibration, through to rumble strips, through to driving over curbs, through to driving on the grass, through to impacts in the simulator. From a flight perspective, it's turbulence, it's landing, it's your gear thumping down when you lower your landing gear, it's when you're firing guns in a combat simulator, it's the shake of the guns through the airframe. All of that is translated into your simulator through the magnificence that is a Buttkicker transducer. Okay, let's now take a look at the different models and answer the all-important question. If you have a Gamer 2 today, do you need to look to upgrade? And if so, to which model, the Gamer Plus or the Gamer Pro? So let's start off by comparing the amps. So we've got the Gamer 2 and the Gamer Plus. Pretty similar amps in terms of overall form factor. One thing I will note though that they've added onto the new models is a digital display on the front, which is really helpful. So I really liked the fact that you have the volume, the low frequency cutout, or sorry, the high frequency cutout display. I guess it's kind of useful. Once I set it though in my initial setup, it wasn't something I really went back and changed, so it's nice to have there. It looks good, but it wasn't like a huge value add for me personally. You may like to tweak your settings more in terms of that high frequency cutout, it's up to you. What I did find was useful was the volume though. I definitely do change the volume between different titles. So for iRacing, for example, I would run it like a volume of only about 22, but then when I went into DCS, I would crank it up to like 26 to get more feeling through the rig. So that was really useful to have a visual display. It allowed me to make sure that I set it back, and it does save your settings each time you power it off and power it back on. It goes back to where you had it last. So that's really cool. The other thing they've done is they've added a couple of things on the back. So they've added a USB-C input, which is for the Hapti-Connect Software, and we'll get to that in a little more detail in a minute. That's a big addition for these two new products as well. And then they've also added an optical output an analog output for audio as well, so that you can string different audio components in line with it, which again can be configured in the Hapti-Connect software. So overall, the amps are pretty similar. Now the power output of these two amps is also the same. So the Buttkicker Gamer 2 and the Gamer Plus both put out 90 watts of power, and they put out at around 10 to 300 hertz frequency. So you've got a good range of frequencies in order to adjust to, and the power output's about the same. When we move to the Pro amp, the big difference there, well, there's actually no difference in terms of the form factor between the two. The big difference is the power output. So whereas the Plus and the Gamer 2 both put out 90 watts of power, this beast drives a much more impressive 150 watts of power. This amp is heavier because it's obviously more powerful, and you need that in order to drive the much larger transducer. All right, and then taking a look at the transducers. So the other big change, of course, with the Buttkicker Gamer Plus transducer is they've really shortened it down. So you can see they've taken this long handle that the Gamer 2 had, and they've essentially reduced it right down. Now they also say they've made a number of additions in terms of the inner workings of the transducer as well. They've really modernized this transducer to make it more responsive and give a wider range of feedback. I've got to say, I actually really did notice that. So the first thing I noticed when I changed from the Gamer 2 to the Gamer Plus was just how much more fidelity I felt in terms of the different types of feedback coming in through the rig. So I felt like there was more detail, particularly at the higher frequencies, and then the lower frequencies came in a little cleaner as well. So it's not huge, like it's not night and day. You're not going to immediately put it on and be like blown away by the difference, but it was noticeable, and I noticed it straight away. So I think they've definitely made improvements on the inner workings of the transducers in order to get just a lot more detail out of the Plus models than they had in the Gamer 2. Now the Gamer 2 is still great, it still works brilliantly, and you're not going to necessarily, as I said, want to jump up and down about it, but you will notice, or I certainly did notice, a lot more detail coming through from the Gamer Plus. Now, when I went up to the transducer in the Gamer Pro, this thing is an absolute monster. This thing will put out a lot of shake power. This thing, you can see the physical size of it. Again, if we compare it to the Plus, you can see it's like more than double the size. It's more than double the weight. This thing is an absolute beast. And this is absolutely designed for larger rigs. You wouldn't want to put this on a small to medium sized rig. This thing is designed for big solid rigs where you're looking for a lot of shake. Or if you're a much bigger person than I am, you maybe want one of these on a smaller rig, but honestly, this thing provides a lot of power and a lot of vibration coming through your rig.
Shake your ass.
So those of you already using a Gamer 2 are probably familiar with SimHub software. You're most likely using it to power your transducers along with many other parts of your rig at the moment, and SimHub is a great piece of kit. It's got a fully functioning free version, although we absolutely do advise everyone to chip in and support the developers by upgrading to the paid version if you're using it. What the new range of ButtKicker products bring to market is a new software package called Hapti-Connect. The Hapti-Connect software is designed by Buttkicker in order to power their transducers and their amps, and it takes feeds directly from games via plugins, and it can also be used directly as to provide feedback through the audio output. So essentially it's a replacement for SimHub. You wouldn't need to use it as well as SimHub. You can pick and choose which one you go with. So there's some great walkthroughs online talking you through Hapti-Connect. I'm not necessarily going to dive into the depths of it at the moment, but suffice it to say, there's a couple of different versions. So the Hapti-Connect base package is free, and that comes with pretty much just the ability to configure your software and your setup, and then also to power via the audio output. It doesn't come with any game-specific plugins at all, but it's free and everyone can download it, and it can be used for all generations of ButtKicker equipment, from the older right the way through to obviously these two new models. There's then a couple of different versions of Hapti-Connect that you can purchase. So the standard version, and this is actually free if you have purchased a ButtKicker Gamer Plus or Gamer Pro, you can register it and get the standard version for free. And you then get to choose one of two packs. They have either a track pack or a flight pack. And the way it works is individual plugins will power they will essentially receive the telemetry output from the different games and then power them and configure. You'll give you a range of different telemetry options to configure for your ButtKickers. So with the standard track pack, you get plugins for iRacing, Assetto Corsa, F1 21 and 22. You get the Dirt and also the rally generations as well. So both of those are available as part of the track pack, and that comes at $29.99 if you buy it individually, or as I said, you can get it free when you register one of your either the Plus or the Pro. The other thing to mention is that you can choose between the track pack or the flight pack. So the flight pack comes with plugins for Microsoft Flight Simulator, X-Plane 11 and 12, and also DCS, which is pretty cool. So overall, the plugins are really good. They give you a range of different things that you can customize, different telemetry elements that you can choose, and you can set up how you want to level them. You can use the software to configure your ButtKickers. If you've got one or multiples, you can obviously configure your outputs as well. Overall, it's a really robust package, and we've seen a lot of improvements in the Hapti-Connect software it's coming through. I will run a more detailed comparison for DCS in particular, so I went with the flight pack for my initial setup because I wanted the DCS support. Some of you may be familiar with currently, in order to drive ButtKickers through DCS, you need to use the SimShaker software, which is provided by a gentleman called Andre. He builds it, it's an individual who's built it himself and he sells it. You can purchase it. He kindly provided us a review version. So I'll do a more in-depth comparison of the software between Hapti-Connect DCS software versus Andre's SimShaker module software as well, and SimShaker for aviators. And you can see how the two compare. The one thing I will say is that the Hapti-Connect's really simple. It works really well. It's very well configured for DCS, and it works out of the box. You basically just activate the plugin, turn it on, and you're good to go. And you'll be feeling all of the bumps and the jolts and the feedback from the guns and the landing, and everything you get when flying DCS will be coming straight through without any complicated setup, which is pretty cool. So that then leads me to the question of, do you need to upgrade? I guess the answer is it's definitely personal choice between the Gamer 2 and the Gamer Plus. I think you're absolutely going to notice an improved level of fidelity and more detail in terms of the feedback that comes through from the Plus than you do from the Gamer 2. You're also going to get the digital display. You're going to get there's an RF remote as well, which comes with it, which is a nice touch. And you're going to get the USB port if you want to use the Hapti-Connect software, which is really helpful. If you're already running SimHub, you've got it dialed in, and you feel that you're really happy with what you've got, one option is definitely to bring in a Gamer Plus as a second butt kicker. So you'd put this one perhaps under your seat and then maybe move the Gamer 2 to perhaps under the pedals, or you could put them obviously on the different corners, or left, right, front and back, however you want to do it. But I think it's a worthy addition to your rig is absolutely to bring in a Gamer Plus, either to replace your Pro or as an addition. In terms of rig size, the guys at ButtKicker recommend the Gamer Plus should be used for small to medium sized rigs. So think sort of anything up to like a TR80, TR120, you would look to use the Gamer Plus. Anything larger, and you could definitely do it on a 120, but anything a 120 and above, you absolutely want to look to move to the Gamer Pro. So to answer the question, should you upgrade? I think there's a small amount of benefit on small to medium rigs if you want a little bit more detail, a little more fidelity, you want to look to investigate the Hapti-Connect software, and you want the visual display of the Plus, then absolutely you should look to make the move from the Gamer 2 up to the Plus, but that's kind of personal choice. If you, however, are running a larger, heavier rig setup, and you're running one or more transducers at the Gamer 2 level at the moment, you will absolutely notice the difference if you move up to the Pro. So again, don't do it if you've got a small to medium rig, don't go to the Pro. Anything sort of medium to very larger rigs, you want to go to the Pro, because this thing will shake the house down. It is a huge improvement in terms of the amount of vibration you can get through the rig, and that has benefits both in terms of the high frequency, the more detailed stuff, and then the low frequency, big heavy thuds. You're going to notice them a lot more when you put a transducer of this size on your rig compared to your Gamer 2 of this size. So to summarize, should you upgrade from a Gamer 2 to a Gamer Plus? Small to medium rigs, it's personal choice. Yes, definitely take a look at it if you want a little more detail, if you want to take a small step forward in terms of the overall feeling, or potentially if you want to add in a second butt kicker. If you've got a larger, heavier rig, you're running a Gamer 2, particularly if you've only got one of them, you should absolutely make the jump up to the Gamer Pro. You will notice the additional shaking, you will notice the additional vibrations coming through, and you notice the additional detail in terms of the amount of feedback you're getting as well.